Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mental Health Matters. And as you know, or at least I hope you know by this point, I'm your host, Dr. Matt Glovac, and welcome to our fourth episode. So, as you can see by our guest here, Mr. Byron Sellers and I, we're wearing the same clothes, and we're shooting the same, shooting episodes back to back here. And what we want to do is continue on talking about, careers and what that can look like. So, one of the things that I talked about when we were discussing mental wellness is workplace stress, workplace advancement, being able to find different opportunities. And one of the things that we didn't mention here in the last episode is that Byron and I were actually co-workers, and it was about 7 years ago we stopped working together at the corporation we were at, and then we ended up finding each other years later. I mean, how crazy is that?
Man, it's insane.
And I thought it was pretty wild because, throughout that time while we were both working at the corporation, we were looking at different things. I remember while I was, a young student and I was working on my mental health counseling master's degree, I remember I'd be on lunch break sitting in a stairwell doing homework on a computer. And people were like, what do you do? Like, why are you in a stairwell doing work on a computer right now? I would look at them and smile and be like, well, because one day I'm going to be a doctor. They're like, okay, kid, I don't know. And just sitting there, day after day, week after week, and so on, people started to see that, okay, this guy is taking it pretty seriously, and I appreciated that. And I remember some of the things too, like while you were at the corporation as well, you were looking at different avenues in that.
Yes, man. I was a dreamer then. I was definitely a dreamer. I had a lot of ideas. We had instant messages where we would share
all the time,
ideas
yes.
About it. But one thing I love about it is you were determined, and some people could not see why you didn't want to stay for the rest of your career. And one thing I definitely admired about you, because you already knew what you wanted to do, and not only did you utilize your time, but you utilized your time after work to pursue exactly what you want your dreams to be.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that. And one of the things I know we're about to talk about in a few moments are a lot of the stressors that we had while working at the corporation. And all the ideas that you had when you were on Instant Messenger, we'd always lighten up the day by writing little rap lyrics and things like that, laughing about the stuff that was going on. And having a great workplace buddy really lifts up your spirits.
Yes.
Now, one of the things that you stated a few moments ago is in terms of being able to see the way out, having some clear direction as to what it was that you wanted to become. And I think one of the things that people don't realize is that work-related stress is actually the easiest thing to be able to alleviate. Now, do you believe that's true?
Looking back at it, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So looking back at it, yes, but while you're in the heat of the moment, you probably didn't believe that, right?
No.
And it's hard to believe because, our job means so much to us. We take a look at it statistically, individuals between the ages of 22 and 60, you ready for this? Spend 60% of their waking hours at the job.
Wow.
60% of their waking hours at the job. So let's think about this. If you're miserable 60% of the time, what's that other 40% going to look like for you?
Right. Miserable.
Miserable. But if you're loving what you're doing for 60% of the time, the other 40%,
yes,
probably going to be fantastic.
Definitely.
And like they say, when you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life.
Man, that is so true.
You do it, and we have stressful days, absolutely, and for sure. But just going in and feeling the value of what it is that we do is something that's so amazing.
Yes.
So I want to take a moment and try to think, in terms of feeling trapped. So with having a job, like I stated a moment ago, and many people won't believe it, I certainly didn't believe it, you didn't believe it, over 7 years ago when we were at this job, that this is the easiest type of stress to alleviate. And, that's due to a lot of different reasons. First and foremost, getting a job isn't the easiest thing in the world.
Right, it is a job.
Getting a job is a job. That's why I tell clients who are looking for work, if you're trying to find a full-time job, it takes full-time work being able to find a job. So that in and of itself is stressful. So having a job, is something that we want to hold on to. So we have that whole element to it. The second part of that is that if you get a job that pays you fairly well, again, something that you want to hold on to, especially if that job has different benefits. If you're taking a look at having a retirement plan, you have medical, vision, dental, you have paid vacation, things like that. We don't want to lose that, right?
Right.
That could be very difficult. And then, taking a look at the different things that we have to do in terms of people who we support. If we have a spouse we support, if we have children we're supporting, other family members such as perhaps our parents or grandparents, these individuals who are relying on us. And when people are relying on us, there's much more pressure for us to be successful.
No, that's so completely true. Myself, I was a first generation college graduate. So when I got that job, it was I had made it, and actually, more of my family members and even friends start coming to me for monetary support. So that was along with some of the stresses as well, because it was like when he looked at my salary, he was like, I'm not making that much money.
Well, and that's the thing, and I do want to give a shout out to he's a Lewis University graduate here,
yes.
so in our neighbor community right down the street here. So it was another reason it was great to have you back. So being somebody who's a first generation graduate like that, and you're giving a little bit about how that felt to your family, but really, like, what did that do for you? Like, taking a look at, here I am, the first person who graduated with this degree in my family.
Yes, don't get me wrong. The confidence was like, wow, it was one of those wow factors. But I knew it. I knew it, when I was younger. Hey, this is what I wanted to do. So even coming out and getting a corporate job, it was like that was my ultimate goal. I remember telling one of our managers, like, hey, I'm going to be the CEO of this company, and he's like, kid, you got a long way to go.
Oh, absolutely. I think, and the funny thing is, I think I had a similar thought when I first started there as well. Although my undergraduate degree from University of Illinois was in psychology, ended up getting a job completely outside of the field and what we did, and the rest was history, obviously, from that point. But another important point that you were talking about here is being the first person in your family who was a college graduate, and then you get the career. That really speaks to a person's identity.
Yes.
So even beyond the money, beyond the responsibility, beyond the position, we take a look at people and the job they have, it becomes a big part of their identity.
Yes.
When I ask people oftentimes to say, Byron, who are you? One of the first things they identify is their job. Hey, Matt, who are you? Well, I'm a mental health counselor. Oftentimes, and depending on the person, we don't say, oh, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a good person, I'm kind, I'm funny, I'm White Sox fan, that type of thing. How about you? What do you notice?
Well, man, I remember trying to explain what I did to a lot of people, when I was younger, and a lot of people just be like, oh, okay, and that right there, like you said, that identity, I became that job. I wanted people to know that I had a corporate job, because where I came from, a lot of people didn't do it. A lot of people were still on the streets, and a lot of people looked up to me because of what I did. It was, I had made it out. And when you look at something like that, it was like, it created those pressures.
Absolutely. So those pressures, for you to stay on top, to maintain that image to everybody else, but even more importantly, to maintain that image to yourself. And that's where people can get really lost. And when we work with individuals who lose their job, it's much more than just losing a job, and they don't see it, well, okay, maybe I can collect unemployment for a while, I can live off my savings for a while, which is very stressful in and of itself to begin with. But really where people get lost is losing that sense of identity, because, if I'm not this corporation man, well, who am I? And it's hard to find anything else. And the other stressor with that is too, especially if you're fired or you're laid off, you feel as though, okay, I have nothing to offer. Right. There's something deficient with me. There's something wrong with me. And trying to get out of that type of mentality can be ever so difficult.
Oh, man, so true. When I lost that job, I felt like I lost that identity. And I was trying so hard to get back to that level of what I thought that was who I was, that I was starting to lose myself, right? My confidence wasn't high. I felt as, when I lost that, it was, I lost my lifestyle.
Absolutely.
And not knowing that actually I can create my lifestyle, but I didn't have the confidence to do that at that time.
So it's almost one of those opportunities that in having something negative happen from the workplace, you're able to turn it into the best thing that's ever happened to you. And that goes back to that whole thing we talked about having choices, taking life into your control. So when we take a look at the workplace, we look back in our lives and we think about bullying. We think about bullying in the classroom, something that happens in elementary school, middle school, high school, and we hope by adults that bullying goes away, but it really doesn't, does it?
No. Some of the things that, you would see in the workplace, you literally have to turn a head.
Absolutely.
And, some individuals, I know, like for myself, it was one thing I didn't take that.
Okay.
And sometimes that became as a threat, but at the same time, it still commanded respect. But some people, like you said, you saw bullying in the workplace. And like you say, when you're thinking out of high school, even college, you're thinking, I'm not gonna have to face things like that. And then when you see people doing that, sometimes it's like you do want to be the hero. Like, no, no, no. Hey, that's not cool, and just stepping up for other people.
Absolutely. So putting your neck out there, knowing that there may be an opportunity that you could be reprimanded or you could be retaliated against, or ultimately even lose your job.
Yes.
And these are the types of battles that people have to face every single day. So how wrong, how egregious is something that's going on that I should act out or choose not to because I'm risking everything else that's going to be going on here. And bullying can come in a lot of different fashions. In the way that we do things, whether it's a sexual type of harassment, making fun of somebody's culture in a discriminatory bias type way. Some people just bully other people out of ignorance. They just either don't know any better, they don't care. It's just their mentality and who they are. Bigotry, if you will. Some of the other things that we can see as well, though, is that people are very territorial, especially when we take a look at some of these major corporations and the way that they're structured. I mean, I remember, that movie Office Space with was it the TPS report? I hope I got it right, the TPS report, I think. If I didn't, I apologize. But like after he didn't put the cover letter on it, 7 people reach out to him, and that's exactly what it was.
Yes.
So I'm here doing my job, and then I have my team lead, and then I have his team lead, and then there's the third manager, the second manager, then you have the general manager, then you have the director, then you have the vice president, then you have the president, and all these people are coming down to your point. But the thing is, like you said, when you first came into that company and you wanted to be CEO one day, these individuals, one way or another, whether the wrong way or the right way, we're able to work up that ladder, and having these different opportunities is something you really want to protect.
Yes. Yes, no, definitely. And when you get in some environments, a lot of times it's, you might not necessarily lack the resources, but I guess you can say the work ethic to get to that
true.
level. And you mentioned about those things as far as bullying or things like that. And unfortunately, you see socially that some people become in the workplace, and when they're not accepted, it start to isolate themselves. You're right, because it's like the in crowd, it's the popularity contest, even in the workplace, what they didn't think they were going to experience. And I mean, when you looking back at it, what we came from, you saw a lot of things which is in a typical corporate environment.
Absolutely. So now, not only do I have to focus on getting to work on time and the long hours that you're working, oftentimes working through lunch breaks, staying late after work, not only those types of things, I also have to worry about whether I fit in the in crowd or not.
Yes.
Because sometimes the people are more productive and doing a better job, get knocked down because they don't fit with that in crowd.
Yes, no, that is so true. And again, not just our company, but companies I've definitely worked for in the past. You definitely see it. You have workaholics, but they're not getting acknowledged, and someone who pretty much, kind of, it's almost like cheating on a test.
Absolutely.
They get the acknowledgement for being buddy buddy with people.
No, absolutely. And then we have a trickle down type effect as well. So if we have somebody who is a really hard worker, and let's suppose, those 7 managers that we have getting all the way up to the CEO, if the number 3 individual doesn't like number 6, it's going to be hard for number 6 to get to number 5 to number 4.
Yes.
And these types of things just continue to happen all the way around.
Yes. Yes, no, that is so true. And so, honestly, my best advice to people is, if that's the case and you're getting caught up in it, you might as either A, start your own company, or B, look into an acquisition and purchase someone else's
Look
company.
into an acquisition. Okay. So we have these types of things. And we talked about in our last episode how entrepreneurship can be something that is attainable. It is attainable. But let's say, here we are, we're working a job like we were doing. It's 10 hours a day. Oftentimes we were working through our lunch breaks. We were staying after work. One of my favorite things was leaving on time. Hey, part-timer, what do you care? Know what I'm talking about? That type of thing. So a 10-hour day turns into 11-hour day, turns into 11-and-a-half-hour day. And even then you're still not feeling fully appreciated. And also the problem with the workday too is it was rush hour on the way there and on the way back. So that 10-and-a-half, 11-and-a-half-hour day turned into an hour, hour and a half on the front end, hour, hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes on the back end. So now here we are looking at a 13, 14-hour day. And when's a person to sleep?
No, seriously, it becomes life. And then unfortunately, when you go home, guess what you're talking about? How much you don't like your job.
Absolutely.
And then in the morning, you know what you're thinking about? hey, I don't even want to wake up and go to this place.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're rushing out. So you talk about that mental space,
Mm-hmm.
that's all it is. And imagine that whole entire negative ball is just forming.
Oh, it's a huge ball of negativity. Again, you start looking down on yourself, and you get that mentality because oftentimes in the corporations, they try to make it seem like a fun place. They make it seem like, corporation, team spirit. There's no I in team. We all collaborate together. Teamwork makes the dream work type thing. And if you're somebody who's not sharing that same vision and sees something wrong, you're oftentimes viewed as the outcast. There's something wrong with you, not us. It's what's wrong with you. So when people get isolated and they don't speak to other people about it, they do feel like it's them. And that was one of the benefits that you and I had, and amongst other colleagues we had, as well, was to be able to talk about the things and realize, it's not you, Byron. It's not me. It's really what's going on here, and we're able to inspire one another and feel better. Another great point that you mentioned here too is the negativity that follows you home, the negativity that follows you from home to work. Thinking about when you're feeling anxious, one of the symptoms of anxiety is, you feel frustrated, you kind of feel frightened, you kind of get paranoid, we start to catastrophize. Every day I'm going into the job feeling like it might be my last. Every day I'm going into the job feeling like I might explode on the person who's bullying me.
Yes.
And these are negative things, and with that type of thing going on, sometimes you lose sleep.
Yes.
So not only am I working 11 and a half hours a day, driving 3 hours a day, now I'm not sleeping on top of that.
Yes, and I mean, literally, I remember some of those. I remember even having nightmares.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, and when you think about that, like you said, how healthy is that for you? One thing, one joy we had was we got to a point where we were able to actually work out together.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to, release some of that work stress just through a workout, having fitness within ourselves.
I appreciate you bringing that up. So that was one of the things I think that really started to take shape for us. So once we started to band together and we spoke with one another about the experience we were having, and we sat there and figured out, okay, it's not us. It's really the system of what's going on. We all need our jobs. We're young guys. We need the money. We have different things we want to do, but we're not there yet.
Yes,
for me, when I started, I knew getting to where I'm at now would be at least 8 years out. And for you starting your business and all that, we're looking. It's going to take some time and experience and all that. So while we were there, trying to find the way to make the best of it, and I think a big part of that was setting boundaries. So I remember all those times, especially in the beginning, we'd work through the hour-long lunch break, but then put a hard stop on that and said, you know what? No, we do have a gym here, and it was one of the benefits that we had with our job. So I'm going to work out every day for an hour. Or if I didn't feel like working out, I'm going to make a point to go on out and eat a lunch. I mean, I remember sometimes I'd even eat lunch at my desk. Now, in the beginning, I would eat lunch at my desk while continuing to work and not take a break. But then it became eating lunch at my desk and then going to work out with you guys, coming back with a couple hours left, feeling refreshed and ending the day.
Yes. And I mean, literally that changed. That helped me change my scope. The camaraderie that we created, those laughs that we had just within an hour, right? And I remember
laughs that we still have.
Oh man, literally. And we were able to start taking our lunch breaks later, so we only have maybe 2 hours left in a day. So, when you think about those things, it's one of those like, wow, this is what we were dealing with in our younger 20s.
So an absolute different mindset. So working in the same environment, with the same people, but being able to set those boundaries and make things different. One of the things that made me laugh as we were talking on the phone yesterday preparing for the show was when you called me out about the whole, leaving on time. Hey, part-timer, you said, that was one thing I remember about you, and I absolutely love is how once the clock struck, you were out of there right on time.
Yes.
And, that stuck with me. And, like that type of thing, for instance. And I know, again, that might not be probable at every single job, and it might not feel as though it's probable at every single job. And I know some service jobs, if you're a police officer, if you're an EMT, and plenty of other jobs out there, you can't always leave on time. You're going to have to stay after for some type of emergency.
Right.
But in a case where you're working in an organization where the job was done on time, and not only was the job done on time, I did it well, but the work mentality is to stay after for the sake of staying after to look better. Why should I stay afterward?
Honestly, I guess to try to get employee of the month.
I guess so.
But honestly, again, when you look back at it, sometimes I honestly, you see that control. You give someone a piece of power, whether it's, again, it's a manager, and really a manager's job is to manage your work. But unfortunately, a lot of occupations managers want to manage you as the person.
Absolutely.
And I think that right there adds that more stress. That right there needs to be fixed. If any corporation, if people are still doing it, they have to remember that, hey, I don't pay this person out of my pocket. The company does. My job is to manage their work, and you have too many people that try to manage you as the person.
Absolutely. So that's where that micromanaging comes in.
Yes.
That sense of power, being an elitist, and just really enjoying, pulling the strings, if you will, along that. And again, that could be very, very stressful for a lot of people. And I think it's really great to learn to empower yourself to set boundaries, and to empower yourself to stand up for things that aren't right. For instance, reaching out to human resources if there's some type of issue, and even if it's against a boss. First and foremost, it's important to be able to assert yourself.
Yes.
Assert yourself that if something's not right, to be able to speak to that individual. And I think that we oftentimes confuse being assertive with being aggressive. And you don't need to get in the individual's face. You don't need to scream at the individual. You don't need to name call, belittle, be discriminatory, or anything like that. But stand up for what's right, because you're a person too. And oftentimes when you're standing up for yourself being bullied, you're standing up for everybody else.
Yes. No, that is so true, so true. And you have to sometimes, not to say be the martyr, but you do have to stand up for yourself, because that does help the next person, because hopefully that person can realize what they're doing and the effect that it's causing.
Absolutely. It's the same effect as in the classroom. I always love at the end of the class, does anybody have any questions? Please raise your hand. And then you stand there and wait. Nobody raises their hand. And then maybe after 30 seconds, the first hand goes up, and then other hands start going up. And we see plenty of movements like this that are going on throughout our country and throughout the world, where people finally started to speak up and others are catching on to it. Now, unfortunately, there are situations where when people speak up, the supervisor may retaliate. But even in those instances, you could still come back to calling out the retaliation, having a lawsuit or a class action lawsuit, going public to the newspaper, the media. And that's one of the great things about social media these days, is that when injustice happens, we can actually share it with other people and have some action take place.
Yes, it's huge person. I mean, as you think about a lot of movements, since social media has helped Americans or people around the world be able to see the injustices that have been caused in the workplace and other things as well.
Absolutely, and we're not going to take it anymore, nor should we take it. It's not right.
Yes.
So, to this point, we've been talking about some of the stressors at the workplace, some of the things that we did to try to alleviate stress while at the workplace, doing our workouts, writing our raps, and just having a good laugh and things like that. But how about the rising above part? So getting to that point where, okay, I realize my value, this job, no longer do I want to be the CEO. I don't see this as my career anymore. So I'm going through the motions, getting through my day-to-day to be able to save my money, keep my benefits, and so on. But I'm going to work on something else. Like, what are some of the steps involved with that?
And I mean, first and foremost, you have to. I can't say you have to be afraid, because it is going to be scary. It's going to be scary,
yes.
and most people, it's scary because you think about losing it, right? But the biggest thing you have to work on is it's personal development. You got to work on you first. That's one of the first things you have to do. Once you start to invest in yourself, right, and invest and see that it is more possibility, that enables you to not only build up not only the confidence, right, but that helps you to start to be a visionary, see what your vision, and then create a plan. Right, you can I tell people while you're working, let that be your investment tool to your dream. So start planning it out. I feel like that's the gift that we have. My signature is different than your signature. Everybody in the world's signature is different.
Absolutely.
So you want to be able to start writing down your ideas, to start being able to carry out one by one and get help. Source someone that's doing exactly what you want to do, and see how they can help you as well.
There are always resources out there. And one of the things that I love that you stated right here is to work on you. One of the things that used to inspire me was Success Magazine for Entrepreneurs by Darren Hardy. Are you familiar with it at all?
Nice. I know Success Magazine, but I'm not sure what the
Okay.
Well,
at the time, when Darren Hardy was the producer of it, or the editor of it, he used to release a CD with it, and I would always listen to the CD in my car as an audiobook, and we'd have all sorts of different entrepreneurs. People from Shark Tank would be on there, other people like Dr. Oz and individuals like that. And one of the things that he shared is to always work harder on you than on the job. Invest in yourself. You're the number one investment. And something else he stated that really resonated with me to this day, we take a look at this. So you wonder to yourselves, like ball players, for instance, take a look at a baseball player. And what's the average salary of a Major League Baseball player?
If I say yearly, I'm just going to throw out a number. I'm going to say $15 million.
$15 million. $15 million is something that's unattainable to most people in a lifetime. I mean, let's be realistic here. And, outside looking in, you see this baseball player making $15 million. And you're like, how can a guy deserve $15 million to play baseball, to do something like he's just hitting the ball with the bat? How is he worth that? And then we take a look at individuals who work really hard. And, so for instance, we have an individual at McDonald's maybe making minimum wage to be flipping the hamburgers, getting the French fries and stuff like that. And this person works very hard, but the problem is that the individuals flipping the burgers and serving the fries is that's something that most people can do. Less people can do perhaps the management job. The individual is overseeing the operations at the McDonald's, so that person gets paid a little bit more. And then we take a look at the people who are the regional managers. Again, less people can handle managing 15, 20 stores. He gets paid more. Less people could be the CEO and so on. So we take a look at the ball player now. Is anybody going to pay $15 million a year to watch you play baseball?
No.
They're not going to pay it for me. I mean, I'd be lucky. I'd have to pay people to come and watch me play baseball. Let's be real here. But that's what it is, and that's the value. People come into the ballpark. They're paying however much money per ticket. They're buying the individual's jersey. They're buying hot dogs. They're paying for parking, and they're watching it on TV, getting all these different types of endorsement. And these individuals have a value that most other people cannot attain. I wouldn't sit there and pay money to go to a ball game and watch people who don't know what they're doing.
Exactly.
So we have to think about that. So being able to take a look at yourself, what are your strengths, what value do you have, and being able to bring that to the table, and that's where I really see that you can make the most money.
Now, that is so true. And one thing you touched on is the value. What value? So what value, you have to realize what value can you bring to the marketplace, right? And when you continue to pour into yourself, you finding your purpose, finding not only what's your passion, you start to learn who you are and how much power you have as a person, and that right there can start, catapult you to to your visions and your dreams.
Oh, certainly, and we have to look at education as an investment, and that's another piece of this as well. So, university can be very expensive, and we go on and on about student loan debt and what it looks like, the high interest rates we have. But now we can take a look, and on YouTube, there are so many different tutorials that you can have on there. iTunes has iTunes University, where we can have some of the world's leading professors giving different lectures and things. So, coming out of that, you may not ultimately get a degree because you didn't enroll in the university and take the classes according to that structure, but you're still learning a lot of the same information, and you could do so for free.
Yes. Oh man, that is so true. And now I always tell people, it's so many programs that you can invest in that, not to say just on the internet, but people, let's say you want to go into real estate, if you want to go into, any type of financial market, there are so many classes that you can invest to that is cheaper than college tuition nowadays.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things too, while you're doing this and you're really curious as to where to start, it's really about intentionally placing the time into it. When you're working those long days and saying, okay, it takes a full-time job to get a full-time job, you can start off small. So even while you're working all these long hours, maybe it's a half-hour a day you have to spend, an hour a day you have to spend. Maybe you can only spare $10 a week and you save that every single week throughout the year to start to invest in these different resources. But you can do it from starting small, and eventually that's going to continue to build up. All the years of sitting at a stairwell and working on the computer and that type of stuff, and having people not believe me and think I have ridiculous dreams. On your end, some of the things that you've gone through to get to where you are, and here we are, entrepreneurs doing all these different things that we absolutely love. But the reality is that oftentimes it doesn't happen overnight like that. You've got to put the time in. And I remember being a younger man myself, and you take a look at some of the business executives and these CEOs, people who have their businesses. You're like, God, he really seems to have the leisurely life. I see him out there playing golf, schmoozing, doing all this fun stuff, but you didn't see all the work that was put into it beforehand and all the responsibility that individual has. So you're CEO of a company, you're one of the higher ends, you're running this thing. You have to make the final decisions for the good or the bad, and bad decision can end up not only costing you, but costing everybody else who's working for you as well.
Yeah, so true. Very true.
All right, so here in our final minute, do you have any final words you would like to share?
Oh yeah. So I mean, honestly, the biggest thing is find your purpose and invest in yourself. That's the biggest thing I tell. Invest in yourself.
I love that, Byron. Thank you
Thank you.
so much. So, invest in yourself. That's the best piece of information we can give to anybody. So, if you are experiencing any type of workplace stress, it's leading toward the type of distress that we talked about and otherwise, know that you're not alone. There are different things that you could do out there to be able to have a much better life experience. So, as always, if you're interested in being a guest on the show or if you have any questions or comments, please do reach out to me to dr.mgloviak@gmail.com and also visit us at our Mental Health Matters Facebook page. And also feel free to look up the resources that we present to you for Mr. Byron Sellers. We'd be glad to help you with anything you have. Thank you.